All right, so what did you think? Was that illustrative concerning organizational change? Some of you are nodding, yeah? And otherwise useful in life navigation, if you consider your own life? Some of you are nodding. Maybe it will be later, if we ask you in a couple of months or in a year. I will just put this in perspective to what you have been reading for today and for the e-lectures that you have been watching, and see what is organizational change about. So Giorgio, will you put up my slides on the screen? Yes, here it is. Ah. Now we'll just go through the whole the whole toolbox. As you can see, do you recognize this model from the toolbox, from the e-lectures that you've been watching? This is a very simple model that we have for how organizational change is taking place. And if you consider what Camilla was talking about, she was very much talking about change on an individual level. You can also talk about change on a group level and on the organizational level. Of course, the complexity rises because you have to have more people aligned if you go from the individual, changing the individual, to changing a group or changing a whole organization. But the first step is to assess the need for change, then to decide on the change to make, implement the change, and evaluate the change. And is there any of you who can remember what Camilla was saying about what is important if you take her approach to change on for instance, if we take the first step, what do we actually mean by assess the need for change? Yes, and we have a question down here. Oh, sorry, an answer.
She was saying it was important to figure out where you were heading, so having a clear view of what you wanted to change.
A clear goal,
yeah.
She was saying, is very, very important. And actually, before setting up a clear goal for where you would like to go, for what is the direction or the purpose, you could also say purpose, you were saying, for the change, is actually to recognize that there is a problem. What do we want to change? Why is it necessary to change? And if you are to be change manager someday or be exposed to change, you could say, you might ask yourself, what is actually the need for change? Why do we have to make all these changes? Why do we have to do things in a new way? If that's not clear, if there isn't a clear purpose, if it doesn't make sense, if you can't see what's in it for me, I believe she also said, then motivating and engaging people already in this step can become quite difficult. So that was the first thing, to have a clear goal, a purpose, and to make clear what's in it to me, for me, so you can actually motivate the organizational members. Then decide on the change to make. Do you have any good offerings on what Camilla was saying on this step? She wasn't really talking about this model, but I think it could be useful just to use it as a framework for mapping out what was the story she was telling you. Decide what the organization's ideal future state would be. Identify obstacles to change. What is that about? Yes?
Well, one of the obstacles you mentioned a lot would be the culture, both thinking about the culture in your organization, but also thinking about how the culture around the organization can have an influence on how we're doing and why we're doing things the way we're doing it.
Exactly, the culture. And she had in her work, she had one tool or one approach. She was asking, what do you think about your work norms here? What is legal? Is it legal to meet at 10, to be a B person? Is it legal to work late in the evenings, or do you have to be very visible all the time? Or what are the norms around working here? because that's her focus in changes. It could also be if you're setting up a new strategy, it would also be what does it actually take to make the change. Next step is to implement the change, to decide whether change will occur top down or bottom up, introduce and manage change. Can you see anything Camilla was saying in that direction that could be useful or exemplify what we're talking about here? Yeah.
So at least she said she would work with the CEOs and the management first to get them to inspire their colleagues and workers, and by that going from the top and down, and also get everyone involved, not just one or two persons, but actually the whole company.
Yeah. Actually, to make it clear that this is something that it has to involve everybody. She was also saying you don't just, some managers just communicate saying, well, we have decided on this change. They say it out loud in the organization, now change people, and people don't. So this is actually to make it really clear, what is this change going to be about? What is it that what are we actually going to change here? Is it the way that we are working that has to be differently? Do we have to communicate differently with each other? Do we have to sit differently in other offices, in open offices or more closed? Do we have to be part of new groups? And whatever it could actually be that makes it visible that now we are implementing the change. And then I just thought I had another point here. I think she also had a very, especially when we talk about the cultural changes, that this really takes a lot of time, and people don't change in the same pace. Some people are just very engaged. Yes, I would like to do this. First day or first time they hear it, and other people really have to adjust to it and think about it and take it in and actually feel that, all right, this could actually make sense. And some people are also very resistant, and they might, even as she was also saying, leave the organization when you start implementing and see what is this change then actually about. Last step, to evaluate the change. She wasn't talking that much about it, but I think we could still talk about it here. What do you think that part is about? Yes, we're up here, Jacob.
Well, she did show some results, like the company becoming the #1 workplace.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
In Denmark, and also the increase in work happiness.
Yeah.
So there are some benchmarking that she was using.
Some very visible figures, yeah, for saying that we have done something, yeah, and we have made a change, yeah. So this is actually to see whether or not this gap that we have identified in the beginning, has it been closed, or have we changed the organization? So this is what this model is about, that you can try to map out the change process either as a planning way of planning it ahead, or looking at it backwards, saying then what was actually done, and then you can use it for an analytical purpose in that case, and maybe even also to diagnose whether or not there has been any problems. I'm talking about the way that you can use it in your casework as well. All right, another important model that we have in the toolbox from this part of the lesson is this one, and it is actually about why do we initiate change processes in an organization. And one motivation for doing it could be that we would like to improve our operations. Maybe there is a bad efficiency. There could be a bad quality in the company. Now we're talking about the 4 building blocks of competitive advantage. We would like to improve our competitive advantage, either by improving operations, or it could also be that we would like to respond to new events. That's the other part of the model of competitive advantage. We would like to increase our speed, flexibility, and innovation towards the customers, or increase our responsiveness to the customers. That is actually also to respond to new events that we can see in the market. And these two motivations for doing change is actually you could see them as two opposite processes in your organization, where this one is about establishing routines. Let's say this is how we do it, and now we will improve. You will create standards, for instance, or routines, as it says over here. Whereas this one is about breaking down. Now we would like to do things differently. And both of them goes perfectly into a change paradigm and could be put into the change model as well. And of course, in an organization, you will see both processes taking place either at the same time, or they might be competing, or they will just take place. First, you need to improve your operations, then you become really, really good, and then you will break down some routines in order to respond to new events, and you create routines on that. So they will just be changing back and forth between these kind of processes. Any questions or comments in relation to this from the panel? Yes, Per?
Just to give you an example, if you look into what happens with the Danish Rail, DSB, the Danish Rail Company, actually what they are trying to do is to improve operations, to assure fulfillment of the timetable. But as you might have experienced, if you're using the train, they have huge problems in doing it. And if you noticed, the new Minister of Transport have actually discussed with, or had the idea that maybe you should raise the fines you have to pay if you do not fulfill the timetable. That's a motivation for improving operations. But at the same time, he's actually also talking about making competitions, putting it out into a free tender, making other companies actually go in for it. And that's actually would for the DSB be a new event they have to take into action. So this discussion is actually a part of the political discussion right now concerning the railroad traffic. And you can see it from many companies that they always have to take this stand on, should they go for the improving operations, or should they come up with something new? And if you look at Nokia, which we talked about one of the other days, Nokia actually didn't follow the new events happening on the telephone market, and therefore they have huge problems today. And if you follow the discussion in the newspapers, you can see that they try to come up with new ideas. Yesterday it was mentioned that they will actually try to develop an Android telephone next to their Windows-based telephones, just to see if they can keep up the speed, because they took wrong decisions at a certain time.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, another model that I would like to emphasize today is the STAR model. I guess you have been reading the note on the STAR model for today as well. This is a rather important model. You have the business model canvas on one side as the overall framework for understanding the business side, and I would say this is the overall model for understanding the organizational part of the course, as we are now starting looking into. And this model is a model on organizational design. As you've been probably hearing in the e-lecture, you can start out by having a strategy or a new strategy. So this is also part of a change process. And then the idea is, what does it actually take? How do we configure these 4 elements in order to actually be able to fulfill the strategy and reach the new goal that we have set out? So you could say, if we consider again the change process model, the third step of implementing the change, what is going to change is actually these 4 elements. That's the areas that you can make changes within. Either you can structure your company in a new way, you can work differently. We could say down here is really where Camilla is working. She creates new work processes, new habits, new ways of working, what is legal in the company compared to what it was before. And also, how do you motivate people for both engaging in the change process, but also to engage in the new state or the new kind of organization that this company would like to be in. And this can be very, very important actually, because this is where where you will see do you, as an organization, support the behavior of the individuals in the companies or not to support the overall goal that you would like to reach. And what is, I would just say here, and we will come back to that again and again and again, what is important in this model is, of course, to understand the different elements, but especially it is to understand the alignment between them. Do they support each other? Or are there any contradictions or gaps or things that are working against each other? Do you have a structure or work processes and organizational goal where you would actually like to ensure a group effort or team effort in how you are complying with things, but you are actually rewarding individuals? Then you will could have things working against each other, saying that we would like to take out the single person, but we would like still to have a group effort to support it. That could be a contradiction or could be a problem in some organizations. So this is about seeing how do these four elements support each other in order to reach the overall strategy, set and short. But you have the note for reading about it, and you also have the lectures. Any comments, Per?
If you compare to the discussion Camilla actually brought up, she was saying you could change culture. The guy who made this model says you can't change culture. You can change people practice, you can change structure, you can change processes, and you can change the reward system. And dependent on how you change these different elements, you will get a change in culture and in performance also. So Camilla was not very specific on what she actually did to change the culture. But Sarah at least heard she was saying very clearly that she looked at the processes and tried to change the processes. But you also have to be aware that if you want to really have a new culture, you should also be aware of the reward system. For instance, if you want to have an accident-free company, you should be in the construction industry. You should be aware if you have a reward system which actually gives you a benefit for being very fast, it is there's a high probability that you will have more accidents than if you are in a system where your salary is not dependent on the speed with which you're working. So you have the time to actually concentrate on what you're doing and not pressed by a salary system doing that. So the whole idea in this model is to say that you have to look on how people's practice, how structure, how processes, and how reward systems are designed, and the way these elements are designed determines the culture.
Yeah. And actually, I would say it's not only the processes; it is also people practices. This is you could say this is both what competences do we have in the organization, but it's also you would say what is here saying performance. So if we would like to ensure performance for the individuals, that could be actually saying here it's legal to in this company it's legal to arrive at 10, and you don't have to all the time be very visible around saying, well, I have actually been working at home since 8 o'clock, sending all these emails with CC to everybody so they can see how busy you are and so on. That no, we have the trust in you, saying that, well, depending or no matter at what time you arrive in the workplace or whether you're working at home or whatever, we still believe that you are actually productive and that you reach your goals as we have agreed on. That's also part of the people practices. Yeah. Any comments for this model? We'll be working on it this afternoon, I'm sure, in the continuous walk case. Then I have some practical issues that I would like to say. First of all, remember that Sunday is last day for signing up for the oral exam. And you have to sign up for the oral exam by writing an email. We've sent it out on CampusNet, so you have the message. But you have to sign up in order to be able to enter. So it's not just enough that you are signed up for the course, you have to sign in specifically for the oral exam as well. So, and then I would like to thank you for the very valuable feedback you gave us last time during the afternoon classes. It has really been great. And one practical thing is I could see that a lot of you had problems with actually getting power in the classrooms, and it should be solved. So I hope the electricians has been there and resolved the issue. But otherwise, let us know again when we give you the red and the yellow papers. Then another thing, it's more about where I think it could be useful just to go back to where we started on the first day of this course. So where do we come from? Where have we reached? So this is what it's about: technology, economic management and organization, and all in all, how to understand the task of making technology and engineering work successfully in an organization. So that's the overall purpose that we're working with here. And I hope that the talk shows that we have had so far, you think, have illustrated also some of the very different facets to this type of work that TEMO is covering. And then just a little on how we work in this course, and you might have worked already. The TEMO mindset, we could call it. We have this very basic understanding of the company as having a strategic level, tactical level, and operational level. And depending on which perspective you take in the cases, you will see different things. Then we've been talking about business models and how do you actually create a viable business. We've been talking about design thinking and the environment of the organization and the business. And now we are starting to look into the organizational part, especially with the STAR model. And our idea with having these overall frameworks is that you will then have, well, you could say like a meta model that you're looking into, and then you'll have a couple of supporting models that can help you to do the underlying analysis for using these. And our organizational theory we have organized according to the STAR model, saying that we have something about strategy, and then you have these 4 elements covering most organizational issues. And then how to work with cases. You can use the TEMO mindset to put down on it, and then you have the sort of small methodology for case analysis that you will look into, of course, the case. What is the problem owner, what are the causes? You can use the framework, and also the solutions. You can also use the framework. They're both models that you can say could be used for setting up a diagnose, but also to identify causes and putting up solutions. And you have all the theories and models here. So this is just a little repetition on what is TEMO actually about again. And oops. Then just a short example from what you're working on last time. And if you remember what Matthias was talking about at the first talk show, about mapping out the case, and I still think that's a very good idea. Of course, in many of the cases, there is a track lined out. Who is the problem owner? What are the causes and what are the solutions in problems, causes, and solutions in this case, and you can take that direction. But I think you can also open up the case and look at it from a broader perspective. And so if you take the Milkfast case that you're working with last time, from a business perspective, they are working in dairy at the moment. They have a business opportunity of going into wine, and they could be in wine and still be in dairy within one company. That will be an organizational decision to take. Should this just be one big company, or should we separate, saying we have a wine company, we have a milk company, or a dairy company? Another option would be to go into dairy, wine, and maybe something else. Do you follow it? And actually one is missing here. They could also just go into wine and just skip the old history, or go into something else and skip the old history. That's a different set of combinations you could actually set out, so you can decide on whether you think these are all relevant, or whether you should go for the track that is outlined in the case. And then we also have Oh yeah, then there's this question. That you still stick to the dairy, but they would actually either just be in Denmark as they are today, or they will develop a global strategy and saying, well, no, wine is not our business. We will not go into that. We will stick to our core competences and be there. Part of their development could be together with this French wine farmer who is offering them this very, very good offer. But it could also be with somebody else. So, I mean, nothing is really set out as very fixed solutions or ways that you should go for these things. You could open up the case and also be creative in that sense, which is perfectly allowed, for as long as you can argue it with an analytical perspective. Okay? And then another issue that I would like to emphasize is how you learn in this course. Of course, you have your 2 books, and we will really urge you to read them. That's quite important, that you prepare yourself. As we say, this is a blended concept we have developed, so there are no real lectures where we will go through all the stuff. So it's very important that you prepare yourself at home. You go to the TEMO platform, watch the e-lectures, and that you maybe also read some of the articles that we have uploaded there for you, and the videos for inspiration. And of course, that you go to the exercises in the afternoon. That's where you can really take out a lot of information. And then the purpose of the talk shows are not real lectures. It's more that you go to an example, or you can get some inspiration for how can TEMO actually work in real life. And we will try to translate or to give it some perspectives by these small after talks. So that's the concept for how you learn in this course. And I'm saying this because some of you also in your evaluation thought that, well, there is not that many lectures in this course. No, there isn't. And that's the purpose of it. So you have to do something differently than you're doing maybe in other courses. Also saying that you have to learn differently. So your preparation is rather important, and then we will have some more collective reflections and working together around things, and that's how you actually learn to apply things. Okay? Good. That was it. Any comments or final questions for what is going to happen from now on or in this afternoon? Otherwise, changes. Yeah, that's very important. You say that, Laurie.
If we're finished.
Yeah, I am finished.
Okay, just to wrap it up, some of the things that we were talking about, one thing was when you talked about the talk show. The great advantage of the talk show is, yes, you come, you can get inspired, but it also is a great opportunity to have a chance to do Q&A with the 4 of us, which you often will not see. So it may seem like, well, maybe we don't need to go, we can just live stream it, but it gives you an opportunity not only to actually ask the 4 of us, but also you have an opportunity to speak directly with the guest, which can be valuable for you. What we need to talk about is next week we will start at 9 o'clock. We have a conflict, or there was a scheduling issue. So we will need to see you at 9 o'clock. So sorry, bee people. You're going to have to just hang in there. I'm with you. And just going through the time, we've been talking a lot about how you're learning and getting a response and looking at the numbers, how many people are going in and watching the interviews. Do you know that you can also download it on iTunes, the live stream? So if you want to take it with you and, yeah, I know you want to watch these over and over again. But just to pull out information, we're doing what we can. This is organizational change in the making. So you're experiencing it live. It's not easy, we know. For some of you, it's easier than others. But at the end of the day, it's really critical for you to understand that this model of reading and investigating, that's what I'm calling the investigating part, is looking at that side panel in the Mentorix area to read, check out those videos. I'm sorry?
The platform.
Yeah, the platform. Yeah, you don't know it by that name. But to read those extra articles and to also push yourselves to explore. Then if you see something and you're not quite clear, oh, that was really interesting, what that RS, animated film was about, but I think I'll go and Google a little bit more about that. Take the time now because it goes so fast. Think about it. Next week is our last talk show. So, you're getting ready for oral exams. We're going to do a wrap-up after next week's show and talk about the Toolbox. But this is it. The time has already gone by, and this is 10 ECTs. So it's important. It may not feel like it's a real hardcore course of things that you need to do, but there is a lot of work that we've expected from you. But because you're used to that lecture model and the old school of how, what's a hard course and what demands a lot of our time, don't be fooled in thinking because we're up here doing a talk show that it isn't work for you. Don't be fooled in thinking because it's up on a platform that you don't have to do the reading. I did some calculations, and essentially for TEMO 1, that's about, I don't know how well you read because some of you are also foreign, so you probably don't read as fast as I do since it's my native tongue, and I have an awareness of some of the material. Then it's going to take you about anywhere, I'm thinking 9 to 12 hours for each section. If you do the course properly, that's how much time you should be spending at least, and that's including your group work. How many of you are spending that kind of time on the TEMO course? You don't have to tell me now, but think about it.
Eat the frog.
Eat the frog, go do it.
Yeah.
Read, be prepared be prepared here so that you can ask questions that will get you closer to what you need to be able to do in your work in the afternoons, and also so that you can be better prepared for your exams. So that was a little, hopefully a little bit of a motivational speak. It didn't sound so motivational, but sounded more like,
Yeah.
but I hope you have a good afternoon and enjoy the motivation.